welcome back to my little books channel. I'm Ali, and today we're just going to do a little book haul. So I don't remember if I talked about this last year, most likely, but I was on a book buying ban for most of 2024. I broke my book buying ban on my birthday, which was August the 30th. So I've only been buying books since last August. This isn't a book haul that's inclusive of everything that I've got from like August, September. It's mostly just from the last couple months, especially around Christmas. So I just thought, why not share? They're going to be a combination of books that have been given as gifts and then books that I spoiled myself with because I needed the self-care. Okay? Buying books and reading books, two very different hobbies. Should we start with the non-fiction? Let's start with the non-fiction. I spoke about this author quite a lot in my favourite non-fiction books of 2024. So for Christmas, my mum got me The Precarious Life, The Powers of Mourning and Justice by Judith Butler. I didn't know this existed until I saw a TikTok by Sarah Shower, and a few of these, I think just this one and another one, were recommended by Sarah Shower on TikTok. I love them. And this is just about the further exploration into violence and mourning, and connecting it with kind of like a more deeper and more global sense of justice, possibly. I think this was written in the aftermath of 9/11, possibly. I am really, really interested in Judith Butler's more political work. I've only really read her gender stuff, and I read The Force of Nonviolence last year, which I enjoyed. So I am interested, which is why I think my mum got it, because she knew that I loved Judith Butler and it was on my wish list. Another book recommended by Sarah Shower and kind of me getting more into political philosophy is Justice by Michael J. Sandel. What's the right thing to do? So this is political philosophy and political theory. This is mostly targeted, I think, towards the American context, but he just is going to talk about things and how everything connects to politics. I don't know. I just really wanted to develop my understanding of political philosophy and political theory, and a lot of people say this is a good place to start because I think a lot of people actually use this as a textbook at uni, possibly, not too sure, but I feel as though it's a much more overarching, broader sort of book that touches on a variety of different issues. So I'm interested. That's why I have it. Again, this is what my mum got me for Christmas. And then the other book that my mum got me for Christmas is this one. This is Queer Soul and Queer Theology, Ethics and Redemption in Real Life, edited by Laurel C. Schneider and Thalathia Nikki Young. This is part of the Routledge New Critical Thinking in Religion, Theology and Biblical Studies. This is very academic, which is exactly kind of what I wanted. I have another queer, I think it's called Queer Religiosities, and it's by Melissa M. Wilcox. And that book is much more sort of like an introductory textbook to these ideas, whereas I think this is a much more you're familiar with the ideas, you're familiar with the field, let's explore. So I cannot wait to get into this book. So I'm pretty sure there are 7 chapters. It's just really fascinating to me. So this book takes up the question of Christian queer theology and ethics through the contested lens of redemption. My thesis, if you don't know, my doctoral thesis was in regards to how queer teachers navigate their identities as a professional teacher as well as a queer person and or as a religious person within Catholic school workplaces, because the Catholic school in Australia is a slightly different beast in the sense that I feel like it would be likened to the Irish context. Australian Catholic schools are the second kind of biggest educational institutions here in Australia. It has the second most enrollments. Number one obviously is public schools. So they occupy quite a large power of influence in a lot of people's lives. And we have some laws here in Australia. They're called the religious exemptions in our Anti-Discrimination Act and our Sex Discrimination Act, where it allows religious organisations to essentially discriminate in good faith. So it means that if they find out that you are a gay teacher teaching in a Catholic school, regardless of your own religious identity, you can be fired. This also can happen with students. This has also been used for women who, this law has also been used, I should say, against women who are pregnant and are not married. There's quite a lot of, not quite a lot, it's a growing field, but there is substantial kind of research in this field. And that's kind of where my research lies. And I'm currently doing a research project. I'm a research assistant on a project that is, again, looking at these intersections of being queer and being religious and seeing how queer people navigate this space, because there's been a lot of unfortunate research and academics who will stand up and say with their whole chest that there's no such thing as a gay Christian or a gay Muslim. So this has been one of the reasons why my boss has kind of created this project. And if my boss was here now, Professor Anna Hikimudi, she would talk about her experience at a conference when an academic, a scholar, said that there was no such thing. You cannot be gay and be a Muslim, and you cannot be a lesbian and be Christian. And kind of the uproar that caused when people were like, you are completely disregarding people and the complexities of people's experiences. And so that's where I'm in. That's the field that I'm in. And my thesis particularly looked at the choice of a queer person choosing to be working within a Catholic school, especially if they themselves were Catholic or grew up in a really Catholic household. It was kind of this way of finding redemption or trying to seek redemption. And so redemption was, or penance was a slight theme of my thesis. And so I'm really interested in this and just to see what other scholars in the field are talking about. And there are a few books in this series that I would like to get to, especially the active hermeneutics, proclaiming holy scriptures, and multilateral theology. I think they will be interesting. But yeah, got this one. That was a tangent. I apologize. And then just a random book that I got, which has been on my TBR for quite a long time, on Goodreads, as something that I would like to get to in the future, but I never really bit the bullet and purchased online. Sometimes I have this weird thing where I say to myself, I really want to read that book, but I'm not going to buy it unless I physically see it in a bookstore. Because it was the same with Pew by Catherine Lacey. I was like, I really want to read this, but I'm not going to read it until I find it in a bookstore. Does anyone else do that? I think that's a really weird thing. Anyway, this is Caliban and the Witch, Women, the Body and Primitive Accumulation by Silvia Federici. I just think this cover is kind of gorgeous. I think this is a feminist take on capitalism in the sense that it looks at the body, the flesh, and its links to capitalism. That could be hugely simplifying things, but it is a sort of historical text that looks at the history of the body in the transition to capitalism. So moving from like the medieval period to where we are now, or whenever this book was published. I've always really been fascinated by this, the idea of this. And there was this essay or video that talked about witches and witchcraft, like from the medieval period, and like the witch trials and capitalism. But I don't remember its thesis. I don't remember where I consumed this media, but I just remember it. And that was why I put it on my list. Most of what I'm going to tell you about these books is just why I got them, like the vibes. So you're not going to get huge synopses from me, okay? The next one, I got this specifically for work because don't tell anyone, but I've never read it. I've only read snippets, right? This is Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Now, if you are in education, this is everywhere, okay? The essential thesis of this is like education is freedom. And that's why education is political. So there you go. I just thought that the cover was really interesting. And I'm wondering if this is going to tie into anti-intellectualism. Most likely won't, but I'll find it really interesting to read this and then have a look at the discussions that are happening currently surrounding anti-intellectualism, surrounding like the idea of, defunding education, and just, especially in Australia, I feel as though the media landscape very easily positions education in a really negative light, especially teachers. So it'll be interesting to read this and then kind of put it in dialogue with a few other things that are currently happening. So I got this, and it's a short one. The last non-fiction book that is new on my shelves is this cute little one. This is Ways of Seeing by John Berger. It's a cute little penguin modern classic. I'm pretty sure this is pertaining to art theory, but I've heard this book recommended in conversations surrounding philosophy and slightly politics, because it's the ways that we consider our world, our reality, how we perceive, and kind of like the mechanics of perception. So I just thought that was interesting. So I'd like to read this. Okay, so that's my non-fiction out of the way. Let's get to fiction. They're right here. You can't see them. So the first one I got because, first of all, it just sounded really interesting. But second of all, I went to a new bookshop in Northcote. Is it technically in Northcote? Called Ramona Books. If you are familiar with the area, it's where Neighbourhood Books used to be. So I went there because I love bookshops, obviously. And I was just browsing and I saw this book. Not gonna lie, the colour really drew me in. This is Elsewhere by Yan Gi. This is a short story collection. Isn't it absolutely stunning? It's absolutely beautiful. So why I got this? It just sounds really interesting. Purely because the author explores isolation in 9 iridescent, witty and wondrous tales. So I just liked the fact that it described itself as strange and beguiling. Is that the way that you pronounce that word? Beguiling? Anyway, that I picked it up. And I really love thick short story collections, because too often you get short story collections that are so tiny, and typically short story collections, for some ungodly reason, they are more expensive than like typical fiction novels. And so I'd like to have more bang for my buck, okay? And this is definitely giving bang. It's banging, okay? But yes, this is the author's English debut, I believe, in her highly anticipated English language debut. Love it! So that is book 1. Oh my god, I just forgot one non-fiction book. really quickly. I love space. This is The Secret Life of the Universe by Natalie E. Cabral, an astrobiologist's search for the origins and frontiers of life. I saw astrobiologist and I was like, I want to learn more about astrobiology. So I grabbed this. I will admit, didn't really read the blurb. Saw the cover, saw the astrobiologist, and picked it up. So let's look at the blurb together. So, over the last few decades, space exploration has revolutionized our understanding of our place in the cosmos. We now know that there are many habitable environments within our solar system, yet a profound question remains, are we alone in the universe? So it's just going to go over the latest discoveries and awe-inspiring exploration and what that means for us on Earth. It just sounds like a good old time. Might see if this is an audiobook as well and like immerse read it, because I love immerse reading non-fiction books. They're amazing. I'm also currently immerse reading Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. 10 out of 10 would recommend. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Okay, back to fiction. Oh, I should put that on the non-fiction side. I'm chaotic today, I apologize. The next book, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I'm going to read this soon. I just have this thing in me that I really need to get my Rooney on. And I mean, I could reread a Rooney, but I really want to read this book. A friend of mine, Georgie, read this and loved it, and I trust her judgment. So I feel as though this is going to be a great read. I'm very scared. That's why I haven't picked it up. I'm just very scared that I for some reason won't like it. But I should know that regardless, I always have a good time with Rooney. And I think I've said this exact statement in a previous video. But this is about brothers. It's about knowing Sally Rooney is going to be quite existential because that's the way she rolls. And I think it's just them navigating mourning and grief about humans being alive. So sign me up. Because I am a human who is also alive. Barely. The next book I actually found at an op shop. I found it at an op shop for $4.99. So this is Funny Story by Emily Henry. It looks so cute. So I didn't read Happy Place. It's the only Emily Henry adult romance that I have not yet read. Yeah, I've read everything else except for Happy Place. Just wasn't interested in it, to be honest. I'm not like the most interested, that word again, in second chance romance. But this sounds really cute. The main character, Daphne? Yeah. So Daphne and her childhood best friend Peter, they fell in love, and they've been together for a while. I'm pretty sure they're affianced. But Peter has this like best friend who's a girl, and I think before their wedding, am I just making this up? I feel like I've made the wedding part up, but Daphne and Peter were fiancés. But Peter goes to his like girl best friend, and they get together, and then Daphne is like, what the fuck? It's like that meme, you know, like the guy you're with and the guy that you told me not to worry about, that meme. But Petra and Peter, that is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I think that's funny, right? That's supposed to be ridiculous. So, but Petra is also engaged to a man named Miles. And then I think they get together. They're now like roommates because Petra and Peter have fucked them up. And I think they make a plan to do something. I don't know if it's fake dating. I don't know if it's trying to get them back. I have no idea. But a lot of people have really loved this. And I've seen this explained as like kind of a funny, it's like a rom-com. And I am looking forward to this because the last Emily Henry book that I read, which was Book Lovers, right? Yeah, is my favorite Emily Henry. I absolutely adored that book. I controversially don't like Beach Read. I thought Beach Read was fine. People We Meet on Vacation or You and Me on Vacation, I liked a lot. I thought that was so much better than Beach Read. Book Lovers was exquisite. So I'm hoping this is a good time, and sometimes you just need a good time. There you go. Next one. Oh, I really want to read this soon. This is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This was on my most anticipated list the year it came out. And I found it at Dimmicks when I was in Adelaide. And I just loved this cover. And I've heard this described as heartwarming. And the synopsis makes me want to pick it up. It's about a sentient octopus. And he becomes friends with one of the cleaners at the aquarium. And I think that is the most beautiful thing in the entire world. We all want an octopus. Just me? Possibly. But I think it's supposed to just be about friendship and loneliness. I've picked this up once to read, but then I realized that I was in a much more fantasy mood. And when I'm in a mood, I can't read outside of the mood. Yep. So that's Remarkably Bright Creatures. It's just so gorgeous. Oh, the next one I also got from Dimmicks in Adelaide. I got this because I'm telling you, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. Okay? I'm telling you this right now. It'll be hilarious if I'm wrong, but I think this is going to be such a great book. I picked this up firstly because the book cover is honestly the most beautiful thing I've ever laid eyes on. Okay? Look how beautiful this is. Oh my God, I love it so much. This is Bull Moon Rising by Ruby Dixon, the artist who wrote Ice Planet Barbarians, which I have not yet read, but honestly might. This is a romance set in a fantasy world between a minotaur and a human. Human? Well, humanesque. Human. Don't know if she's a witch, but she's a human who wants to be like an archaeologist or something. But it's within this world of like magical artifacts, and the amount of magical artifacts that you have is like how wealthy you are, and therefore increases your standing within the society. It includes like we need to get married so that I can do this and then you can do that. But he's going into heat. I'm just really excited. I just think it's going to be such a fun book. And she's thick. I think this is going to be... I might vlog this when I read this because I feel as though I'm going to love it. I'm going to have such a good time. And honestly, like Minotaur, I can see that. I can see how that's sexy. I'd be like, yeah, we all get it. Is it the horns or is it how tall they are? I don't know. Okay, next book. I got this quite recently, actually, a couple of weeks ago when I picked up The Hero of Ages and The Well of Ascension, which technically should be on this list, actually, but I forgot. So I purchased those two books by Brandon Sanderson. And then I also saw this. The fact that it's bright pink lured me in. It was a seduction. This is The Simple Art of Killing a Woman. I mean, come on. By Patricia Mello. Translated from the Portuguese by Sophie Lewis. I mean, stunning, right? Absolutely gorgeous. So this is a book that just sounded really fucking fascinating. It's about a young lawyer who wants to escape an overprotective family and an abusive partner. She goes to an Amazonian border town where she meets a local prosecutor named Carla and Marcos, the son of an Indigenous woman, and learns about the epidemic of violence against women. But it also says in the blurb that she meets kind of this like chorus of warrior women on a path of revenge and recovers the painful details of her mother's death. I mean, it just sounds like a really great time. It also sounds like it's going to hit really hard. So this was a purely spontaneous purchase, and I'm obsessed with it. I love it because it's like a novel, but there's like fragments. Kind of says like killed by her husband or killed by her stepbrother. It is also described as a thriller, which I think is interesting. Then a short story collection. This is Mariana Enriquez's A Sunny Place for Shady People. This is her most recent short story collection. I haven't read it yet, which is annoying, but I have plans on reading it this year. I just love Mariana Enriquez. She writes gothic short stories, mainly focusing on the everyday woman. I love her. And the last book I got in an op shop. And I got this because the cover, sorry to say, but also the author. And I was like, this might be a good introduction to this author because the book itself sounds interesting. It kind of reminds me of a Supernatural episode. This is Lullaby by Chuck Palahniuk. How do I pronounce his name? Oh my god, I'm so... Palahniuk. Oh, that's not how you say it. But he's the author who wrote Fight Club. So I just really liked the teddy bears. So this is about this strange thing going on. This guy realizes that he's a journalist or reporter. He is supposed to do a series of articles on sudden infant death syndrome. And as he's researching this, he's realized that a lot of the children who died, if not all of them, all the dead children were read the same poem from the same children's anthology the night before they died, and it's called a culling song. So I just read that and I'm like, yep, I need to read this. So he finds himself becoming an involuntary serial killer because it like lodges itself, like the poem lodges itself in his head and he can't help but like continue saying it out loud or in his head. And supposedly the song turns out to be lethal when spoken or even thought in anyone's direction, which I think is interesting. So it's going to be, I think, a cool time. This sounds not like my typical book, but don't you see the vibe where it kind of reminds you of a Supernatural episode? It could be a Supernatural episode. But yeah, I bloody love the cover. So I would like to read this year. Maybe around the Halloween time, even though I don't celebrate Halloween, but like, it's the spooky vibes, you know? And that is all, my friends. There you go. My little book haul. Not little. This is a bit too much, isn't it? I will most likely do another book haul in like a few months. I am on a budget. I'm on a budget, everyone. Adulting is hard. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening to me rant and go on random tangents. I will see you next Sunday. Until then, take care, stay safe. Have a rest. You deserve it. Take a nap. It's okay. You can do it. You're allowed to. I took a nap for 30 minutes yesterday. It was so hot. In the middle of my workday, I had to. I was literally falling asleep at the computer. So I took a half an hour nap. Did it help? Not really. It just made me more tired. But my eyes were able to stay open. So I take that as a win. Anyway, bye friends.